Good morning. Thank you for staying tuned to the Sacramento Market Watch radio show. In house, we have Greg Sandler, Big Valley Mortgage.
Hi, Jay.
And on the phone, we have the world famous Sacramento regional expert in all things appraisals, everyone's favorite, Ryan Lundquist. Ryan, good morning.
Well, good morning, Jay. That's quite the introduction. I'm not sure it's true, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's true. I've looked through your portfolio, and we've had communications before on different appraisal needs and issues. And so I appreciate that. I see your photo in front of every news camera, in front of every board and organization. And so I was very, very much wanting to get you to the show just because from what I can see, it looks like you're involved very significantly in our community. And that's where I'm doing real estate. That's where the radio show is. And so who better to have come to the show and talk about appraisals in an open, honest forum. And so welcome, buddy. I'm glad that you could take the time, at least by phone, to be with us. How's the weather out there?
Oh, it's fine. It looks like rain might be coming later, but my drive is going great. No complaints here. It's a beautiful morning, and it's Friday. So
yes.
That's a good thing.
I don't know about appraisers, but in real estate, Fridays don't mean nothing. They've got open houses booked straight through. Do appraisers appraise on the weekends?
A lot of appraisers work 24/7. I'll say I actually take the weekend off.
Oh, good for you.
If I'm really busy, then I'll get up at 4 in the morning Saturday and knock out some work. But otherwise, I'm gassed by the time the weekend comes, and I have to take a break.
Yeah. My wife should have married you because for some reason I can't seem to detach. 26 years of marriage, maybe one day I'll learn that aspect. But I do understand, I do agree. Greg and I in studio, both of us, we're at least taking our Sundays and going to church and taking care of our soul. maybe that'll help.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, real quick, one of the things that prompted me to reach out to you, I think it was about a month ago, Housing Wire had put out a report saying 3 things that will kill your real estate deal. The first thing we found, they reported 46% of real estate agents said that the transactions came across some sort of a financing issue. And so that was the number one reason why real estate deals fell through. And the number 2 was the appraisals being done all wrong. That's what in quote unquote, okay, that's not me quoting, that's the article. And so I went ahead and clicked on that blog and just read just a whole bunch of data from both sides of the desk, if you will. And so, who better to talk about, the reality of appraising and appraisals than Ryan Lundquist. And so what are your thoughts overall right now in the economy and what we're seeing as far as homes and appraisals and market value?
Sure thing. Well, first I'll say, surveys like that are always interesting because an appraisal could be a problem for a lot of reasons. Okay. Obviously, if the appraisal was not done correctly and the value was wrong and it really was too low, then, yeah, I understand that was the appraiser's fault. Or there's some other factor on the appraiser's end where the appraiser blew it, and it makes good sense to blame the appraiser. But I will say sometimes if say a property I inspected yesterday, it had a roof leak, and it's going to be an issue. And if the roof is not repaired, this deal is going to go south. And so, on one hand, my appraisal will reflect that, and so it's not really an appraisal problem; it's a house problem.
Okay, gotcha.
And sometimes it's just that properties get into contract way too high, and so the appraisal comes in at a reasonable level, and so kind of where it should come in. And so I think that it's always important to remember those things when we have this discussion, because real estate is complex, value is complex, and and real estate's emotional too, and sometimes the emotions really drive up the price to where, a point where it's just not realistic any longer.
Gotcha. If you're tuning in, we have Ryan Lundquist with us, appraiser extraordinaire. Ryan, tell us again, just real quick, so our listening audience knows exactly who you are and what you do and the name of your business. Could you share that with us real quick?
Oh, yeah, sure thing. I'm Ryan Lundquist. I'm a certified real estate appraiser, and I work in the Sacramento area and just really pay careful attention to the market. Always making new graphs and just tuning in very closely to trends. And I run a blog at sacramentoappraisalblog.com.
Yes, and I have a copy of that here in front of me, as a matter of fact. Because I'm a listing agent, last year 80% of my business was listings, and not one of the properties that I sold had an appraisal concern. And so I don't know if proud, I was proud about that fact, let's say. But recently I was representing a buyer, and because numbers don't lie, in my opinion, we have, the MLS, and we pull comps on the MLS. And so the agent on this particular piece of property put it on the market. I did my due diligence representing my buyer. I always send comps to support my, my contract, so I could see that the property, based on what I seen in the comps from the MLS, supported the ask price, which was a full ask price. And then we get into contract, and then we get an appraisal that came in, oh goodness, I think overall it was about 12 to 14,000 below the contract price, and so it kind of shook me up a bit. And so there was no other houses in the market for sale, and I think the only thing that really caused us perhaps an issue, if I can say it like that, was that this particular neighborhood was intertwined with homes that had 0 lot lines versus homes that did not have 0 lot lines. So it kind of put a red flag in my mind to make sure going forward that we look at comps very carefully. Now, as agents, all we have really is our MLS, and all we can do is go into the database, that we pay for to come up with an evaluation. But I have several emails throughout the week of agents that have had very similar problems, and we're all looking at the same information. So tell me about this. Give me your honest opinion. One of the agents, they said that the comp comparables obviously are not the only way we can look at a value of a property. However, as agents, when we go to market, we have to have a number to support how we got there, but yet the appraisals are still not coming in line with that. What could you tell an agent, a buyer, or a seller? What could you tell us that would help kind of bridge this gap, if you will? Obviously, the market's trying to grow, but the appraisals are still trying to hold it back, if you will. What can you tell us to look for?
Sure. No, and lots of nuggets there that I think that we could talk about.
Yeah, we could spend a week on that, couldn't we?
Yeah. So first, let me just say that an appraiser's job is not to help the market grow.
Understand.
So an appraiser's job is to measure the market. And so it's almost like, I think sometimes we think in the real estate community that appraisers are the ones who put the brakes on values to say, whoa, the market's increased too much, let's slow it down. Or appraisers are the ones that are putting the gas pedal on, that are making values increase. But it's really not that case. There's so many factors that influence the way a market moves, and appraisers are simply a measuring stick to measure the market. And so the thing is, though, is that, yes, we have access to all the same information, but when it comes down to valuation, what's critical is the way we interpret the information.
Okay.
And so one of the best bits of advice I can give to homeowners and agents and really the real estate community is to take an apples-to-apples approach to valuation. And what I mean is that if you're trying to value an apple, or say a certain property, and that property is represented by an apple,
okay.
Well, what have other apples actually sold for in the neighborhood?
Okay.
And what are they actually listed for in the neighborhood? And I find that to be critical, because sometimes what happens is that a homeowner who owns an apple, so to speak, will look down the street and then think, hey, there's a peach, or there's a banana, or there's this other property that sold. And then they take this price per square foot from this other property and then all of a sudden apply it to their own situation. And they can very, very quickly come up with a value that's off base. And So that way, the appraiser comes into the situation, appraises the property, finds those other apples in the market,
Okay.
finds listings in the market, but then it's not really jiving with the contract price or the list price.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the most critical things to consider, and it's frankly one of the most critical mistakes that are made.
Okay. I understand that. I think that's a good point. Hey, Ryan, we've got to take a 1-minute break. Can you stay with us?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
All right. Ryan, good morning. Are you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. We're so glad that you were able to at least be on the phone with us. We desperately want to get you in the studio. Just what's going on in the marketplace, like we were discussing on the other side of the break, just how some of these appraisals are coming in. One thing I do understand, last week we had Dan Marashi of North American Home Services. He's one of the big wigs in that facility that performs home inspections and pest inspections. And of course, being on the listing side of things, those guys are always our Achilles heel. They're going to find things that and just kind of create something around that we found that agitates our sellers. But now with the market trying to go a little berserk and crazy, I don't know if you heard one of our earlier conversations about the market's trying to bubble a little bit. And so you'd kind of hit that nail on the head a little bit about your job and as appraiser is not to be a part of that. Your job is to have an unbiased look and realistic view on values and so on and so forth. And of course, I'm not an appraiser, so I don't understand all of the details of that. However, we understand that as an agent going to the market with the home, we've got to put it on the market at a value that makes sense. Let me ask you this. I just got a call while I was on break from one of my sellers. This home had been on the market twice previous to me taking the listing. They started at $1.1 million, and then it went with another agent at $989,000. And then I could see quickly, just based on a few factors, that even that was still high. I met with them. We put the house on the market $100,000 below that at $899,000. But now, even as time goes on, we've been in about 6 months now and still don't have an offer on the table. We've had a price reduction down to $865. We have activity, but yet we still don't have an offer. And so, of course, they're anxious and agitated by that and, say that everyone's just doing a terrible job and, they're blaming all the realtors, But based on the comps, Ryan, the comps, the numbers that I can see, as a matter of fact, I helped them get a tax reduction because the assessor's office did evaluate the property at $1.1 million, but there's no sales to support that. So I did comps, Ryan, that put the valuation about $766,000. And so it still shows based on comps $100,000 over where they're at. But yet they have an appraisal in hand that says their house is worth almost $900,000. And so we see problems on both sides of the desk. We see the typical house in a neighborhood, it's trying to go out of control. And you said that your job as an appraiser is not to support or deny a market, but just to analyze, what it is that appraiser analyzes. Apples to apples, I think, is the best way to explain that. But yet we're out in the rural areas in these estates, if you will. They have appraisals in hand that are far above what the market is saying. What are your thoughts on that? Sure.
Well, there's always those appraisals, and that happens. There's really nothing that can be done to control that, and so it's an unfortunate thing. But I would say, is it a recent appraisal or is it something from the past? Because we all know that markets change.
Well, they went on the market with that appraisal. So they've been on the market just at a year now, and again, with two other agents. And so they had an appraisal right at, high 900,000s. They went on the market at 1.1. I asked them about that. They said, yeah, they knew they went high. And I'm like, well, I don't know why you're shocked it didn't sell then. And then they picked another agent that I know very well, very successful agent, and he was unable to show the data with them to bring a price reduction. And so I step on the scene and, got $100,000 reduction, and then just recently another $25,000. And I'm still trying to go even lower just to, to support what the neighborhood's doing, even though it is in the country, it is in a a community. It's in an established estate, so every house may be a little different, but overall they're CC&R, so we have to be in the market, and they're very anxious. And I understand they're anxious. However, they have an appraisal in hand that is confusing them, and then of course we're here in the city and we have appraisals that are confusing us. And
sure. Yeah, no, and and that's unfortunate. There's nothing that can be done other than, obviously the market has spoken, and in this case it sounds like that appraisal was simply too high if the market hasn't bitten when priced lower. So unless the market changed, and I think the most important point, though, is that this underscores the reality that the current market is seen in the listings instead of the sales. And I think sometimes we get so fixated on what is sold in the past that we fail to really give a lot of weight to, well, what are properties actually selling for? What are they really getting into contract for? And so I think that in any market, especially in markets that change, we have to really look for the listings, because if they're no longer selling at levels that they were selling at, then we have to adjust because the market is no longer at that level. And
Gotcha.
So I believe in most cases we're not, values aren't declining in the Sacramento area, but buyers are very price sensitive. And so if it's not priced right, hands down, buyers are simply not going to pull the trigger. And so I find that, at the other hand, that sellers are very aggressive and they want to try to price as high as they can, and it's just not realistic. And so I would just say to people, consider if you lined up 100 buyers who were qualified and interested in this house, and in the neighborhood, what's the most probable price that these buyers would offer? Because that's a really good picture of market value.
All right.
So in this case, if the answer, based on looking at all sales and looking at current listings and competitive neighborhoods, if the answer's, like you said, 765 or 800 or whatever, then there's the market rather than 900.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do understand that. I do, and exactly what you said, I relay to sellers. If we have lots of activity, but yet we don't have an offer on the table, isn't the silence overwhelming? Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, silence speaks. That's for sure.
I think a lot of sellers fail to realize that. But on the flip side of the coin, we're seeing here in the Sacramento metropolitan area, in the city limits, we're seeing a lot of sellers actually pricing their properties at a point, and then they're getting multiple offers. I think the last 3 that I sold, I had better than 7 and 8 offers on the property. Now, I'm smart enough to know that the highest offer may not be the best offer because it still got to appraise. And
Wise
so
man.
what are your, and so I get that completely. As a matter of fact, the last 2 offers that we wrote, I had very candid conversations with the listing agent that my buyers will not be burnt again with writing an offer on a home that's not going to appraise. And so we're prepared to write over, and we have the capacity to do that. However, we're not going to get locked up in an escrow that's not going to close. It just makes no sense. So what can you tell the buyers, sellers, agents out there in the lower, the medium, let's say, on how to price a property, or maybe not accepting the most, high offer, especially if there's a loan back behind it?
Yeah, no, actually, I think that's very wise what you said, and that there's always going to be a range of offers. You're going to have your low balls. You're going to have all of them that seem realistic, and you're going to have something high. And I just say sellers really need to look at the offers and consider the strength of the offer. And so in a market where there's no inventory, unfortunately for the buyers, sellers are the ones that are in control. And so that just underscores, though, for the buyer, that the buyer has to bring his or her A game. They have to bring the strongest offer possible. But if they offer too much, then frankly, they're going to have a problem if they can't come up with the difference between the appraisal and the contract price. And so, and unfortunately, it's a balancing act. It's a delicate thing, but it really depends on what the market's doing, because right now it's spring. There's low inventory. It's sort of the height of demand, presumably in the market over these next few months. But usually what happens later in the year, the market will soften and it'll be a better time to get into contract. And so buyers just have to they have to go with the trends, and right now it's a little bit more aggressive, and
Right.
they have to act accordingly. But I think maybe act wise and
Right.
write those letters and do all they can to get into contract
Right.
to make them stand out in a market where sellers are have the edge still.
Right. Ryan Lundquist, it is so good to have you on the show today. We are almost at an end of the program. Sacramento Appraisal blog, is that .com? How can they reach out and get some of this great information?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, anytime. If anyone has questions or you just kind of want to know what the market's doing, I have one big monthly market update each month.
All
Would
right.
be happy to send you the posts, any graphs, that sort of thing. Any questions, just reach out to me. SacramentoAppraisalblog.com. I'm always around.
Wonderful. Ryan Lundquist, great to have you on the show. We'll talk to you soon.